Hello, today's Tuesday. Today's Wednesday, September 6th, 2023. So it's a hump day. After today, there will be 2 days left and then holiday. So the cycle repeats and I'm happy about it. And every day I learn one more thing, and then I would be an expert on machinery export and import in Korea. Yes, I'm a native Korean. I work for Korea Telecom at the moment. KT, number one carrier in Korea. But since I am very competent in my English skills, but there's no job for me inside KT using English, I think I will just look for another job opportunity outside KT. In time, I retire from KT in 5 years. So I would be loyal and energetic. I'm loyal to KT and will be energetic and contributing enormously to KT before I retire. So I'm just trying to read this article to learn more and also be prepared in my English. So it's a dual purpose. I'm going to read it loud so that I could practice correct pronunciation, and also I could pick up some interesting English expressions. So here I am. So here we go. USA Customs clearance powered by AFC International. Custom bans, importing machinery into the US. Figuring out how to ship machinery into the US does not have to cause a headache. That's good, cause a headache. We've compiled a detailed guide to help you navigate. Compiled. I think compiled is better word. We've compiled a detailed guide to help you navigate the landscape of importing machinery into the U.S. by USA Customs Clearance, August 7th, 2019. Share this article. I will later. Last modified September 9th, 2022, so it's about 1 year old. After a lot of research, discussion, and deliberation, your company has made the decision that importing machinery into the United States from another country is a sound business decision. A sound business decision. A sound business decision. A sound business decision. You've never attempted such an undertaking before, and you want to be armed with as much information as possible before you do. As much information as possible. As much information as possible. As much information as possible. Compiled. A sound business decision cause a headache. When importing machinery into the U.S., you will need to comply with the government regulations, of course. Most machinery will be subject to EPA regulations, Environmental Protection Agency regulations, which means you will need to complete EPA Form 3520 to 21. You will also need a customs bond. A licensed customs broker can assist with required documents and clearing your goods. In this detailed article guide, we will go in depth and explore all it takes to import machinery into the US. From understanding the types of machinery to the government regulations and import duty, as well as a step-by-step guide on importing machinery. It's all here. It's all here. That's another good cliche. It's all here. You can find everything here by reading it aloud. It's all here. Table of contents, I will skip that. Why import machinery into the US? Why import, right? You may wonder, why import these machines in the first place? Doesn't the US produce some of this machinery already? Couldn't they? Here are the many reasons why importing and exporting machinery into the US makes sense. A sound business decision makes sense. The US lacks some resources. While the United States is the land of plenty, we don't have everything on the face of the earth. That's good cliche. The United States is the land of plenty. The United States is the land of plenty. The United States is the land of plenty. Sometimes lacking resources makes it difficult to build the above-mentioned machinery, at least to the necessary standards. For that reason, it's smarter and more efficient to rely on imports. Imports drive the country. Another great reason to import agricultural machinery and spare parts from countries like China. Our government, as well as the governments in these countries, encourage the trading and importation process to occur. These arrangements can strengthen bonds between countries. The US deals with the most imports at a rate of $2.2 billion. Yeah, $2.2 billion every day. That's followed by China at $1.5 billion, Germany at $1.05 billion, the United Kingdom at $635 million, Japan at $606 million. The rest of the countries on that list are France, Hong Kong, the Netherlands, Canada, and South Korea. Since the US is one of the top receivers of imported goods, just which parts of the world do they deal with the most frequently? Unsurprisingly, China is our main trading partner, doing $502 billion worth of business a year. That's the yearly statistics. From clothes, machinery, smartphones, and computers, China sends a lot of things our way. It's all here. Next, there's Canada at $302 billion. This country also lends us machinery as well as oil and vehicles. Here's a breakdown of other major trading partners of the U.S. Mexico. Imports from Mexico tally up to $297 billion annually. Tally up to. Imports from Mexico tally up to $297 billion annually. They mostly give us computers, cars, and some imported machinery. Japan, fourth on the list, is Japan, of which imports are valued at $134 billion. Here's a breakdown of other major trading partners of the U.S. Mexico. Imports from Mexico tally up to $297 billion annually. They mostly give us computers, cars, and some imported machinery. Japan, fourth on the list, is Japan, of which imports are valued at $134 billion. We mostly get cars from them. If you have a Nissan, a Mitsubishi, a Mazda, a Suzuki, or even a Honda or Toyota, your car comes from Japan. Germany. We also get cars from Germany, such as Volkswagens. This, along with pharmaceuticals and machinery, amounts to about $75 billion annually. South Korea. The U.S. receives some cars, machinery, oil, and electronics from South Korea. These imports total up to an annual cost of about $74 billion. Total up to, tally up to, add up to, total up to, tally up to. UK, the US and UK import between each other, often with our side mostly getting automobile and machinery valued at $59 billion a year. France, roughly $48 billion goes to imports from France each year. These items include machinery, aircraft, manufacturing equipment, and even beverages. India, although not a major player, the US does initiate imports with India. These are valued at about $46 billion a year. We get pharmaceuticals, oil, and gemstones from India. Italy. Last but certainly not least, there's Italy. Their machines, pharmaceuticals, and beverages make their way onto U.S. soil in a tally of about $45 billion annually. The biggest imported beverage that you may have enjoyed yourself? Wine. In a tally of about $45 billion annually. In a tally of about $45 billion annually. Make their way onto U.S. soil. Make their way onto U.S. soil. Make their way into U.S. soil. Make their way into U.S. soil. Work with a specialist to make importing machinery to the U.S. a hassle-free process. A hassle-free process. A hassle-free process. Right? Let me close the doors in my car. Yep, I'm ready to go to work now. I parked my car outside my office, so I will walk over to my building. Buying costs less than making. In many instances, it actually costs less money for the United States to outright buy something from another country and pay to have it imported than to produce it on its own, right? If that's the case, then it wouldn't make any sense for our country to start producing goods like machinery, some vehicles, and certain pharmaceuticals when we can get them elsewhere. We'd lose money by doing so. There's also the issue of demand. The demand may be too high or too low. Demand can go both ways depending on the season, consumer interest, and the item in question. In some cases, the demand for a certain good can get so high that our country cannot possibly produce enough of the goods, that's misspelling, goods, to meet that demand. So we've pointed out two grammatical errors, typos, goods, and compiled, not complied, rather than turn customers away, which isn't a smart business move. The U.S. decides to rely on the help of other top trading countries and import through them. This keeps up the supply of the product so customers remain happy. As we said, demand goes both ways. 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 In some cases, demand can drop as low that it doesn't make sense for the US to produce some items in our country. Again, we'd lose money doing so. However, there's still a need for these goods, no matter how small. Thus, it's more cost effective to buy and import. So demand goes both ways, up and down, high and low. Demand goes both ways. Demand goes both ways. Possible government regulations for importing machinery. There are many things to be aware of when importing machinery. One thing to keep in mind is possible government regulations. Your imports might require extra documentation and inspection by certain government agencies to meet requirements. For example, if your machinery is related to the medical industry, your imports might be subject to regulations set by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. If you are importing electronic machinery, your imports might be subject to regulations set by the Federal Communications Commission. Tractors are subject to regulations set by the Environmental Protection Agency. Environmental Protection Agency. So we see they have all those agencies have their names start with the, right? The Environmental Protection Agency. Working with a licensed customs broker is crucial when importing machinery. They can help you keep up with changing laws and help determine the correct clearance documents, licenses, and certificates needed to import machinery and other goods. Documents needed for importing machinery. Before you begin to import machinery from China, Canada, and other parts of the world, you need certain documentation. There are 4 documents in particular you must have for the importation to go smoothly. Arrival notice. The first of the 4 documents you must possess is an arrival notice. A shipping agent or a carrier should take care of setting up the arrival notice. Arrival notice. A shipping agent or a carrier should take care of setting up the arrival notice. Then they pass it along to the consignee or recipient. Consignee, right? Consignee or recipient. The arrival notice tells the recipient that their machinery or other good, I think other goods should be better, right? Instead of singular, has made it to the destination. Let me look up the word good. I thought it always is a plural when it comes to pointing out things, right? So good, noun, benefit, asset, something positive, virtue, decency, honor. See, it doesn't say anything about thing. 好的 good is also 好的 surplus, profit, excess, credit. See, it gotta be plural, goods. Merchandise, belongings, personal possessions, movable property. The form might also include such information as picking up charges, how many cargo units got transported, and what those units include. Bill of lading. Next, there's a bill of lading. Again, the carrier sends this out, this time to an agent, captain, or goods owner. The bill of lading is like a sort of written promise. It lets the recipient know where the item is going, how, and when. The transportation conditions are laid out in this document as well. Transportation conditions are laid out in this document as well. The transportation conditions are laid out in this document as well. Packing list. The shipper, bill of lading. Carrier sends this out, this time to an agent, captain, or goods owner. The bill of lading, loading is like a sort of written promise. It lets the recipient know where the item is going, how, and when. The transportation conditions are laid out in this document as well. Packing list. The shipper or freight forwarder sends out this packing list. This contains all the information on the invoice and then some. A CBP officer will often review the packing list and even the invoice before the goods ship out. Ship out. CBP officer. Packing list is prepared by the shipper. Commercial invoice. Speaking of the invoice, don't forget this. For your invoice to be considered complete, please make sure it has this information: the shipping address, the business address, the company name and location, the recipient's company or business name and location, the country of origin, the value of the item, the items themselves. Commercial invoice. We handle these invoices a lot inside my company, KT, Korea Telecom, the number one carrier in Korea. I'm very proud of working for KT, but I hope to have some English-speaking position inside my company so that I could be more versatile, contribute more, and also competent. And doing so, I would be a happier customer. I'm a happier employee. So you will need a customs bond when importing machinery. Customs bond. There are two different kinds of the customs bonds: continuous bonds and single entry bonds. When considering bond types, you should consider how often you plan to import goods. Customs bonds are like an insurance policy that promises that custom duty and other fees will be paid. Custom duty and other fees will be paid. Customs bonds, at least like an insurance policy, that promises that custom duty and other fees will be paid. Single entry bonds and continuous bonds. Single entry bonds are good for one low cost, low risk import through a specific port of entry. You must get a new single entry bond for each new import you organize. Single entry bond. It's like a visa, single entry visa, double entry visa. Continuous bonds are a good choice when you plan to import machinery or goods more than 4 times a year. You will also want a continuous bond if your imports are high risk or high value, like machinery. High risk, low cost. 4 times a year. A continuous bond will allow you to import goods as many times as you need for an entire year. With a continuous bond, you can import through any American point of entry. The cost of continuous bond can vary. It's easy to obtain a customs bond through USA customs clearance. Really? Okay, I'll consider that. But I wonder why you will also want a continuous bond if your imports are high risk or high value. Your imports are of high risk or of high value. Why? How to import machinery into the U.S. from China. Next, let's explain the importing process as machinery goes from China to the U.S. First, there are several provinces and cities in China that act as the top machinery manufacturers. These are as follows: Dongguan, Guangdong; Shenyang, Liaoning; Qingdao, Shandong; Jinan, Shandong; Taiyan, Shandong; Ningbo, Zhejiang; Wanzhou, Zhejiang; Ruyan, Zhejiang; Jinhua, Zhejiang; Shanghai, Shanghai; Suzhou, Jiangsu; Changzhou, Jiangsu; Kunshan, Jiangsu. With that out of the way, here are the steps to follow to begin importing machinery like tractors, as well as custom or replacement parts into the U.S. from China. Custom or replacement. Yesterday we learned such expression as emplacement, right? Emplacement. Step 1. Write out the technical specifications. If the products shipped to the United States fall under the category of factory products, then they should get added to a product specification list. This is essentially a list of pertinent product details and related information. It should include export packaging and certifications, such as those from ASTM or CE Machine Directive. You also want detailed info about the good as well as its weight, included software, the control system, its protection class, efficiency percentage, power in watts, and voltage, its function, motor usage. Motor usage model also must go into the technical specifications. Its protection class, efficiency percentage, power in watts, and voltage. Step 2. Ensure products pass safety standards. When shipping out machinery, agricultural products, and vehicles, these must pass consensus standards. This applies when shipping products to parts of the world like India, Australia, the US, and Europe. If your product fails to pass these standards, then one of several things can happen. First, you could get hit with a very expensive fine. Secondly, you are at risk of mandatory recall. Okay. Also, customs might claim your item and bar it from shipping to its destination. If the machinery came from China, then most likely it does not pass the standards for electrical safety or mechanical safety in the US or Europe, at least not right off the bat. Right off the bat. In the US, ASTM dictates the standards of what can come into that country. Depending on the type of machinery you want to ship, the standards do vary. We could write a whole different article on these standards, so for now, we will just share a list here, courtesy of ASTM International. It does not pass the standards for electrical safety or mechanical safety in the US or Europe, at least not right off the bat. In the US, ASTM dictates the standards of what can come into that country. Depending on the type of machinery you want to ship, the standards do vary. In some instances, other smaller organizations also have their own standards that you must meet. These organizations include the Underwriters Laboratories, Inc., or UL, the National Fire Prevention Association, or NFPA, the Instrument Society of America, or ISA, and the Robotics Industry of America, or RIA, and the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI. As some of the names of these organizations may indicate, not all have to do with shipping machinery. For those that do, we recommend doubling down on the rules and standards to ensure your product meets or surpasses them all. Doubling down on the rules and standards. Doubling down on the rules and standards. Surpasses them all. Meets or surpasses. Meets or surpasses. Step 3. Obtain a test report. Next, before the machinery ever goes out, you must get a test report pertaining to the safety of the good. If you haven't already tested, here the good can be just singular, right? Just because of one item. But it's controversial. Usually good means goods. So here, I think the good could be okay here, singular. If you haven't already tested your products via a third party, you will now have to. This third party will do lab testing, but this doesn't come cheap. 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 Per product, the testing is priced at about $10,000. Damn. Still, you can't get by without a test report, so it's important to test at least some of the machinery sold to the US. If you have a slim budget, then stick to the products most desirable by US companies. Then only offer customers those products since your others couldn't ship without a battle with the customs. When you get a test report, it needs 5 things. These are any regulations on product usage, the issuing date of the report, the manufacturer of the product, the issuing company, and the product ID known as SKU. Step 4. Determine whether you will use warranties and parts replacements. Depending on the Chinese business, some do have multi-year warranties. If the supplier in question does the same, determining so would be the next step. If you could get spare parts, for instance, it's often on the U.S. customer to cover the costs for freight. Not only does this cost a lot, but the length of time one could spend waiting for the parts to arrive makes it easier to just get them in the US if possible. Step 5. Quality control and testing. Sometimes even large items like vehicles, machinery, don't get tested for quality before they are shipped to the United States. You might want to make sure the good in question does receive testing for quality control. If it doesn't and it arrives to you broken or defective, it's often hard to ship the item back. China can block the shipment, and they don't always readily offer refunds. Be smart, man. It doesn't come cheap. Quality control and testing. Step 6. Product shipment. If the product has passed all the steps above, then it can be prepared for shipment to the US. The item must pass customs. We already talked above about which items can and can't get shipped. So you should know whether your machinery will get stuck in the customs mess or arrive at your business front door. What is the import duty and machinery from China? I will cover from here when I go back home. Yes, I'm just sitting at a bench outside my company to start my work today. So I have to cut it off here and come back later. See you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful day today. Duty on machinery from China. The import duty in machinery from China is the tax paid when your imports are transported across international borders. This is a tariff that is paid at the time of import by the importer of record. The importer of record. The importer of record is generally the purchaser of goods or the seller of goods. It depends on the arrangement made when the goods were purchased. Customs authorities ensure the duties are paid. You can calculate the import duty for your imports by using the Harmonized Tariff Schedule, also called the HTS. This robust document is a global system that is used by the World Trade Organization to determine duties. The duty set by the HTS is generally a percentage of the import's value, Harmonized Tariff Schedule. It is either set at a per pound rate or per piece rate, per pound and per piece rate, per pound and a per piece rate. In most cases, the duty on imports coming from China is 3 to 25%. In most cases, the duty on imports coming from China is 3 to 25%. Your licensed customs broker can help you determine the import duty when you purchase a customs bond. Importing machinery from China, from Canada to the US. What if you looked into the above and decided it was too much trouble? Perhaps you'd rather just ship your machinery from Canada instead. Given Canada's proximity to the US, you would save money in many ways, from shipping costs to import duty and everything in between. The savings would be quite significant. That said, you may not have as many machinery operations in Canada as you do in China. Still, if you can find what you need, then by all means, order the machinery through a Canadian brand. Then check out these steps of what's necessary when importing machinery from Canada to the US. For even more information on this topic, check out our article, Importing Heavy Equipment from Canada. Step 1, obtain a PAPS number. U.S. Customs need a PAPS number, which doubles as a shipping control number. Then they pass this information to customs brokers so the shipment gets approved. Step 2. The PAPS number moves to the trucker manifest. From there, with the information provided from the PAPS number, trucking company creates a trucker's shipment manifest. This lets the trucking company know exact information on the machinery shipment in progress. Step 3. U.S. Customs receives the trucker manifest. Manifest moves onto the U.S. Customs, who get the document ahead of the item shipment. If the item gets held up for any reason, it would be at this point. If all goes well, then the shipment will begin moving. Step 4. Sending other documentation. Before the shipment arrives to you, your supplier might ask for data like a truck waybill. Truck waybill, a commercial invoice, or a confirmation of the PAPS number. These documents let the machinery order pass through customs. Waybill. Step 5. Receive your item. Now you sit back and wait while the item arrives in the United States. In some instances, trucking companies extend the customs border checkpoint to get clearance through a warehouse. This is known as an immediate transport setup. By doing this, it costs you more money, up to $100 more, and thus slow down shipping progress. Still, it can happen, so you should be aware of it. Step 6. Dealing with duties. The United States, Mexico, Canada, or USMCA dictates that if your goods were produced entirely in Canada, that you do not have to pay duty on them. A USMCA certificate of origin proves the authenticity of the item. If the company in which you bought the machinery from doesn't have such a certificate, then you may get charged for duty fees. USMCA. Importing tractors into the U.S. There are many types of machinery that can be imported into the U.S. Tractors are commonly imported. A type of engineering vehicle, tractors have a role in construction and agriculture. While they don't travel quickly, their high torque allows them to pull machinery and trailers. They can also tow vehicles, as seen most often in farming. Tractor manufacturers are located around the world. This means importing can be essential. Many tractors are imported from China and Japan. Canada is also a major exporter of tractors into the U.S. European tractors are also common. How to import tractors from Europe? The process for importing a tractor from Europe is similar to importing from China or Canada. It is important to know that each European country has its own set of rules and regulations for exporting goods, including tractors and machinery. You might be subject to Europe's value-added tax (VAT) regulations. The best way to navigate importing machinery and tractors from Europe is to work with a licensed customs broker. USA Customs Clearance offers consulting services and bonds to help you make sense of the importing process. Importing tractors from China is just like importing other machinery. You will need technical specifications of your tractor. You will need to document that your tractor meets standards of the EPA and passes other safety standards. You will need to get a test report. Parts regulations and warranties must be determined. Parts replacements and warranties. Quality control and testing are essential. The best way to navigate importing machinery and tractors from China is to work with a licensed customs broker. USA Customs Clearance offers consulting services and bonds to help you make sense of the importing process. Commonly imported machinery. Tractors aren't the only kind of machinery commonly imported into the U.S. There is a wide range of imported machines in the U.S. Other types of machinery from making their way onto U.S. soil from abroad include injection molding machines. Injection molding machines also go by the name injection presses. Each machine has a clamping unit and an injection unit. When both these parts work in conjunction with one another, it's possible to produce plastic with an injection molding machine. Printing and packing machine. With printing and packing machinery, it is easier to create labels and pack orders than ever before. Rather than relying on humans to do this job, machinery units take care of the brunt of the work instead. Not only can this increase the speed and efficiency of printing and packing, but machine work reduces the rate of human error as well. 3D printers, a desirable piece of equipment. 3D printing technology is on the cusp of a boom. To use a 3D printer, first, the desired item gets drawn and visualized on a computer screen, visualized, then the item can come to life as envisioned. Fused deposition modeling is a type of 3D printing in which material extrusion occurs. According to Statista, per data from 2018 up to 46% of 3D printers rely on material extrusion. Welding machines, also referred to as a welding power supply, a welding machine uses currents to weld metal items together. Whether through inverter, alternator, generator, or transformer power, welding has many everyday applications in construction and building. Speaking of generators, they are a rising type of machinery that's commonly imported, especially from China. To learn more, check out our article Importing Generators from China. Roll forming machines. The process of roll forming is another type of metalworking. Much like welding, this time the machine takes a sheet metal strip, often a lengthy one, and bends it until it creates a cross section. From a roll forming machine, you can feed it metal of different thicknesses and sizes and get accurate results each time. Food production and agriculture machines. A slew of food production and agricultural machines exist that help those in the foods and farming industries each day. From machines that can convert oils from olives and otherwise extract liquids from solids, the speed and accuracy of these machines is non-negotiable. Laser cutting machines. Another device that can chop down metals is a laser cutting machine. With laser cutting, a precision optic laser beam will vaporize, burn, and melt the metal or other material until it's in the desired shape. These machines come in handy most for making piping and structural materials. CNC machines. In the same vein as a laser cutting machine is a computer numerical control or CNC machine. Computer numerical control or CNC, computer numerical control. With this device, a computer determines the tools used for cutting, such as lathes, boring tools, or drills. You can use a variety of materials for cutting with a CNC machine, among them composite, ceramic, wood, plastic, and metal. Wheel loaders. A wheel loader, or simply a loader, is a type of heavy equipment that can move weighty materials, from wood chips, sand, rocks, recyclables, raw materials and logs, gravel, feed, snow, dirt, and asphalt. Wheel loaders move them all. In most instances, the loader passes these heavy materials to a railroad car, feed hopper, conveyor belt, or a dump truck for further traveling or processing. Working with a customs broker. If the above sounded somewhat confusing at points, at the cusp of a boom, in the same vein, at the cusp of a boom. If the above sounded somewhat confusing at points, that's fair. Importing machinery isn't like buying and shipping smaller, more manageable items across borders. That's why some businesses opt to work with a licensed customs broker. The area of customs brokerage deals with shipping and delivering items like machinery. A customs broker can work on behalf of companies and even people. If you are looking to hire a customs broker, they often work at a customs brokerage firm. The staff at these firms maintain a working knowledge of regulations and rules for shipping items from countries across the world to the U.S. With their knowledge and expertise, shipping items or getting goods shipped to you becomes much less of a hassle. Some customs brokers even possess language translation skills and can communicate with Chinese businesses when maybe you can't. What a custom broker or firm will charge depends. They receive their money from brokerage fee. This fee considers the shipment value and then takes a chunk from that value. Thus, the more expensive the shipment, the more money a customs broker would make. It's not necessary by any means to hire a customs brokerage firm, but it's something you might consider if navigating the world of foreign importation for the first time. Importing with U.S. Customs clearance. Commercial invoice. Speaking of the invoice, don't forget this. For your invoice to be considered complete, please make sure it has this information. The shipping address and so on. Yeah, we covered that one. I forgot. I just snoozed for a minute. Yep, a lot of machines, roll forming machine, food production, agriculture, laser cutting machines, CNC machines, computer numerical control across border. What a custom broker or firm will charge depends. They receive their money from a brokerage fee. This fee considers the shipment value and then takes a chunk from that value. Thus, the more expensive the shipment, the more money a customs broker would make. It's not necessary by any means to hire a customs brokerage firm, but it's something you might consider if navigating the world of foreign importation for the first time. Importing with the U.S. Customs clearance, there are many reasons a U.S. company might decide to import goods like machinery from China. They can often save money compared to producing the goods themselves. Importing can also account for a high or even a low demand. If you've decided to import machinery, the rules and steps we covered in this article should make choosing, buying, and receiving your machinery far easier. You can always rely on the assistance of a customs broker if need be. Make importing machinery easy and hassle-free. USA Customs Clearance offers value-added customs brokerage services. We make it easy to import machinery into any U.S. port of entry. If you have any questions or would like to get started, reach out to us and we will guide you through the process. 2 comments on importing machinery to the U.S. Is it possible to get excavators shipped from Shanghai to port of any New Orleans? Fees from customs high? Would like to purchase some machines in Shanghai. Need info on how to get them home. William Rowland. What do I need to clear? Japanese Chinese made small heavy equipment sold to import to the U.S. Leave a reply. Okay, that's it. Thanks for listening.